My name is Akuna Obi, and I am from Ogu in Enugu State, Nigeria. For 35 years, I operated in the kingdom of darkness as a specialist in nocturnal surveillance. My specific assignment was to monitor Christians during the hours after midnight and exploit every vulnerability they exposed. I was trained by my grandmother, who was one of the most feared witches in our entire region, and I became even more feared than she was. But there were three things that absolutely terrified every witch in our coven. Three actions that, when Christians avoided them after midnight, made our assignments completely impossible to execute. Today, I am going to reveal these three forbidden actions to you, and I am going to show you exactly why witches wait for you to make these mistakes every single night. Before I continue, I need you to understand something about the hours after midnight. In the spiritual realm, midnight is not just a time, it is a gate, it is a transition point. It is the moment when one day dies and another is born. And from midnight until 300 in the morning, the spiritual atmosphere is different from any other time. We call these hours the watching hours because this is when we watched. This is when we waited. This is when we observed Christians to see what they would do. And based on what they did during these hours, we determined whether they were vulnerable or protected. If you have been experiencing strange dreams after midnight, if you wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning feeling watched, if you experience sudden fear or anxiety during the late night hours, if you have unexplained health issues that seem to worsen at night, if you feel drained every morning, even after sleeping, then you need to understand what I am about to tell you. Because someone may be watching you to right now, and they are waiting for you to make one of these three mistakes. The first thing you must never do after midnight is to leave your home in anger. This is crucial. In our coven, we had a specific term for this. We called it opening the gate. Because when a Christian leaves their home after midnight in a state of anger, they are literally opening a spiritual gate that we could walk through. Let me explain how this works. Your home is supposed to be a spiritual fortress. The Bible talks about the home as a place of covering, a place of protection, a place where the authority of the head of the household creates a spiritual boundary. When you are inside your home, especially at night, you are under a certain level of covering. But here is what most Christians do not understand. Anger creates cracks in that covering. Anger opens spiritual doors. Anger gives legal access. And when you combine anger with leaving your home after midnight, you create what ruled a perfect storm. Let me tell you about a man named Brother Amma. He lived in Sukkah with his wife and 3 children. He was a deacon in his church. He prayed every morning at exactly 5:30. He read his Bible every day. He led the men's fellowship group. He was the one everyone called when they needed prayer. He seemed like the strongest Christian in his entire community. Brother Eka had built his life on discipline. He woke up before dawn every single day. He provided for his family. He paid his tithes faithfully. He honored his pastor. He counseled young couples in his church about how to have a godly marriage. Everyone looked up to him as an example. But Brother Ameka had a secret weakness, a weakness that only his wife knew about. He had a temper, not just a small temper, a volcanic, explosive, terrifying temper that could erupt without warning when pushed to the breaking point. His wife, Sister Chedinma, had learned over 15 years of marriage exactly which buttons to push. She knew how to bring up his failures at the exact moment when he was most tired. She knew how to compare him to her sister's husband, who had a bigger house and a nicer car. She knew how to mention the things he had promised, but never delivered. She knew how to make him feel like he was never enough. And these arguments always seemed to escalate late at night. Something about the darkness seemed to amplify every grievance. Something about the quiet hours made every accusation cut deeper. On December 3rd, 2012, Brother Amia came home from work exhausted. His boss had humiliated him in front of his colleagues. A project he had been working on for months had failed. He was worried about money. He was stressed about a medical bill for his youngest son. He just wanted to eat dinner, pray, and go to sleep. But Sister Chadima had been waiting for him, waiting with a list of complaints. The school fees that were due, the broken tap in the kitchen, the promise he had made to take her to see her mother that he still had not fulfilled, the way his family looked down on her, the way he never defended her against his sisters. At first, Brother Amika tried to remain calm. He ate his food in silence. He tried to change the subject. He suggested they discuss these things in the morning when they were both rested. But Sister Chidima would not stop. She followed him from the dining table to the bedroom. She stood at the door while he tried to change his clothes. She raised her voice. She accused him of not loving her. She compared him again to her sister's husband. Something in brother Amma snapped. He grabbed his car keys. He walked to the door. Sister Chidimma blocked his path. He pushed past her. She screamed at him as he walked to his car. The children woke up crying. The neighbors turned on their lights to see what the commotion was about. It was 12:37 in the morning. Brother Emma slammed his car door so hard that the window cracked. He reversed out of the compound so fast that he nearly hit the gate, and he drove off into the night with no destination in mind. He just needed to be anywhere but in that house. He just needed to breathe. He just needed the rage to stop. What brother did not know was that I was watching. I had been watching for 2 years. I had been assigned to his family for 2 years. For 2 years, I had tried to find an opening. For 2 years, his prayers had blocked my access. His morning devotions created a shield I could not penetrate. His church attendance maintained a covering I could not break. But that night, everything changed. The moment brother Emeka walked out of his house in anger, I saw the covering over his life crack. It was like watching glass shatter in slow motion. One moment he was protected. The next moment there was an opening, and I walked right through it. I followed him as he drove. He went to a bar at 12:30 in the morning. A deacon in a bar drinking whiskey because he was angry at his wife. That night, I placed 3 assignments on Brother Emma. And I want you to understand exactly how each one worked, because this will help you recognize similar patterns in your own life. The first assignment was a spirit of addiction. I did not make brother EA an alcoholic overnight. That is not how it works. Instead, I planted a seed, a small seed of comfort that he would associate with drinking. Every time he felt stressed or angry or frustrated, that seed would remind him that alcohol made him feel better, that alcohol took away the pain, that alcohol was his friend. Over the next 6 months, Brother E went from never drinking to drinking occasionally, to drinking regularly, to needing a drink just to get through the day. His wife noticed, his children noticed, his church noticed. But by the time anyone said anything, he was already in the grip of something he could not control. The second assignment was financial destruction. This one was more subtle. I placed spirits of confusion over his business decisions. Everything he thought was a good idea would turn out to be a bad idea. Every investment would fail. Every client relationship would sour. Every opportunity would slip through his fingers at the last moment. Brother Emma, Coup L, did not understand what was happening. He had been a successful businessman for years. He had a good reputation. He had experience. He had skills. But suddenly, nothing worked anymore. It was as if an invisible hand was sabotaging everything he touched. Within a year, his business was in ruins. He had to close his office. He had to let go of his employees. He had to sell his car to pay debts. The man who had been a deacon, helping others, was now the one who needed help. The third assignment was marital collapse. This one was easiest because the foundation was already cracked. I simply widened the cracks that already existed. I amplified every grievance. I magnified every misunderstanding. I made every disagreement feel like a betrayal. Sister Shidima, who had provoked him into leaving that night, became convinced that he did not love her, that he had never loved her, that he only stayed with her out of obligation. She began to treat him with contempt. She criticized him in front of the children. She told her family that he was a failure. She stopped respecting him as a husband. Brother Emma, in turn, became bitter. He blamed her for everything. If she had not pushed him that night, if she had just let him sleep, if she had been a better wife, he stopped coming home. He started staying out later and later. The drinking gave him an excuse to avoid her. By the end of the second year, they were divorced. The children were divided between them. The family that had seemed so solid was scattered. The deacon who had counseled other couples about marriage could not save his own. And it all started because he left his home in anger after midnight. One decision, one moment of rage, one open door. And 35 years of witchcraft walked right through. All because he left his home in anger after midnight. You see, the combination is deadly. Anger plus midnight plus leaving your covering. It creates a spiritual vulnerability that we could exploit every single time. I cannot tell you how many Christians I destroyed using this exact pattern. And here is what made it worse. Most of them never connected the dots. They never realized that their problems started on the night they stormed out of their house at 10 in the morning. They blamed the economy. They blamed their spouse. They blamed their luck. They never understood that they had opened a door that should have stayed closed. Right now, I want you to go to the comments and write, "I will never leave my home in anger after midnight." When you write that, you are not just typing words. You're making a legal declaration in the spirit realm. You are slamming a door that the enemy wants to walk through. Do not just watch this video and move on. Participate. Write it in the comments. I will never leave my home in anger after midnight. Your breakthrough starts with your declaration. Now, let me tell you about the second thing you must never do after midnight. And this one is going to surprise many of you. The second thing you must never do after midnight is to count money or discuss finances. I know this sounds strange, but let me explain what happens in the spiritual realm when you do this. Money is not just physical. Money has a spiritual dimension. The Bible talks about it, talks about the spirit of man, talks about how you cannot serve both God and money. There is a spiritual reality to finances that most Christians do not understand. In the kingdom of darkness, we had specialists whose only assignment was financial destruction. Their job was to monitor Christians who were about to break through financially and to place assignments that would keep them in poverty. And one of the easiest ways to do this was to catch Christians engaging with money after midnight. Here is why this works. After midnight, the spiritual atmosphere is heightened. Whatever you focus on during these hours carries extra weight in the spirit realm. When you count money, when you check your bank account, when you have heated discussions about finances, you are broadcasting your financial situation into a realm where spirits are actively listening. I have heard Christians say things like, "We never have enough money. We are always broke. I do not know how we're going to pay this bill." And they say these things at 100 or 2 in the morning, when the spiritual atmosphere is wide open. What they do not realize is that we are listening. We are taking note. We are using their own words to establish assignments over their finances. Let me tell you about Mama Adewubi. She was a trader in Onika selling textiles in the main market. She was a praying woman. She attended 3 services every week. She fasted every Wednesday and Friday. She was known in her community as a woman of faith. But she had one habit that destroyed everything she had built. Mama Adobe came from poverty. Real poverty. The kind where you go to bed hungry and wake up hungry. The kind where you wear the same dress for 3 years because there is no money for another one. The kind where you walk 5 kilometers to school because there is no money for transport. So when Mama Adai finally started making money from her textile business, she developed an obsession with it. Not greed exactly, more like fear. Fear that the money would disappear. Fear that she would wake up one day and be back in that poverty she had escaped from. This fear manifested in a specific way. Every night after the market closed, Mama Adobe would bring all her money home and count it. She did not trust banks. She did not trust lockboxes. She believed that the only way to know her money was safe was to see it with her own eyes and feel it with her own hands. The counting ritual was elaborate. She would lock her bedroom door. She would spread a clean white cloth on her bed. She would organize the money by denomination. She would count the large notes first, then the medium notes, then the small notes, then the coins. She would write the total in a small notebook. Then she would count it again to make sure she had not made a mistake. Usually took about an hour, and it usually happened between 11 at night and 120 in the morning. After counting, Mama Adawi would sit with her husband and discuss the money. How much had come in that day? How much was profit? How much was owed to suppliers? How much needed to be set aside for school fees, for rent, for medical expenses, for church offerings? These discussions often became heated. Her husband wanted to use some money for his own projects. Mama Adobe wanted to save everything. They would argue up priorities. They would argue about extended family members who wanted to borrow money. They would argue about investments that had not paid off. And all of this happened after midnight. I was assigned to Mom Adobe, a competitor in the market. Yes, Christians do this to each other. A woman named Mama Gowai, who sold textiles in the shop directly across from Mama Dabi, came to our coven with a request. She said Mama Dawa was taking all her customers. She said Mama Dob's business was growing while hers was shrinking. She wanted Mama Dawa destroyed. Mama Nangoy paid our coven a significant amount of money. In exchange, I was assigned to monitor Mama Adobe and find a way to destroy her business. For the first 2 months, I found nothing. Mama Adobe was a praying woman. She had genuine faith. She had spiritual covering. During the day, I could not touch her. Then I discovered her late night money counting habit. For the next 6 months, I watched her count money. After midnight, I stood in the spiritual realm and observed every single counting session. I listened to every word she spoke over her finances. And what words she spoke. This is not enough. This will never be enough. How will we pay for everything? The economy is destroying us. These customers do not appreciate quality. My suppliers are cheating me. Everything is so expensive. We are barely surviving. Negative word after nega, chief word, complaint after complaint, fear after fear. And I used every single word against her. You see, in the kingdom of darkness, we understood something that most Christians do not understand. Words have power, especially words spoken after midnight, especially words spoken over money, especially words spoken repeatedly, night after night for months on end. Mama Adobe was literally cursing her own finances with her own mouth. And all I had to do was take those curses and amplify them. The assignment I placed was what we called a leaking bowl. Imagine a bowl that looks solid but has tiny holes in the bottom. You can pour water into it and it will hold the water for a little while. But slowly, drop by drop, the water leaks out. And no matter how much water you pour in, the bowl never fills up. That is what I did to Mama Adewubi's finances. I created a spiritual leak. Money would come in, money would go out. Unexpected expenses would appear from nowhere. Customers who owed her would disappear. Goods would get damaged. Her children would get sick at the exact moment she needed money for stock. For the first 3 months, Mama Adawe did not notice. Business was still coming in. She thought the problems were just normal challenges of running a business. But by month 6, she could not ignore it anymore. She was working harder than ever, but making less than ever. Her stock was depleting faster than she could replace it. Customers who used to be loyal were going to other traders. Her husband had to take a second job just to pay the household bills. By month 12, Mama Dawi had to close one of her 3 shops. She sold the remaining stock at a loss just to pay her debts. By month 18, she lost her second shop and then her third. The woman who once had 3 shops in the main market of Onika was reduced to selling from a small plastic table on the roadside. She would sit there in the sun with a fraction of the stock she used to have, watching other traders in the shops that used to be hers. And she never understood why. She blamed the economy. She blamed her suppliers. She blamed her competitors. She blamed her luck. She blamed her husband for not being supportive enough. She blamed her children for being expensive. She never connected her destruction to those late night money counting sessions. She never realized that her own words, spoken after midnight, had been used to build an assignment that drained every blessing from her hands. And it all started because she counted money after midnight. Now, I need to pause here because I have to be honest with you. Every time I share stories like Mama, Adobe, something stirs in me. Guilt, regret, deep sorrow because I was the one who destroyed her. I was the one who listened to her late night conversations. I was the one who used her own words to build an assignment that would keep her in poverty for years. And now I see the damage I caused and I want to undo every bit of it. That is why I want to tell you about something called the 21-day breakthrough protocol. It is a complete system to identify and destroy the 7 main assignments that were most commonly used against Christians when I was operating in darkness. This protocol was developed by believers who understand spiritual warfare, and I myself went through this protocol after my deliverance. It was part of my healing process, learning how to recognize and break every assignment I had ever been involved with, learning how to protect myself and my family from the very attacks I used to launch against others. If Mama Dobby had known about this protocol, she would have recognized the pattern of her financial destruction. She would have identified the spiritual leak over her finances. She would have sealed the opening that I was exploiting every night. The link is in the description below. Do not wait until you have lost everything like Mama Ada, Obi did. The enemy does not wait. Neither should you. If you have ever counted money, AF midnight, if you have ever had financial discussions late at night, if you have noticed that your finances never seem to prosper, no matter how hard you work, write in the comments right now, I seal my finances from midnight surveillance. Make that declaration today. Close that door and watch how your financial situation begins to change. Now, let me tell you at the third thing you must never do after midnight. And this one is the most dangerous of all. The third thing you must never do after midnight is to look into mirrors. I know many of you are going to think this is superstition. You might even laugh. But let me explain what I witnessed in the spirit realm, and then you can decide for yourself. In the kingdom of darkness, mirrors are not just reflective surfaces. Mirrors are portals. They are gateways. They are points of access that we use to monitor, to influence, and to attack Christians in their most vulnerable moments. Think about where mirrors are located in most homes. In the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the living room. These are spaces where you relax, spaces where you let your guard down, spaces where you are most vulnerable. Now, think about when most people look into mirrors in the morning when they are just waking up and their spiritual defenses are not yet fully active. At night, before bed, when they are tired and ready to sleep, and sometimes in the middle of the night when they get up to use the bathroom. We specifically targeted Christians who looked into mirrors after midnight because in those moments they were broadcasting their image, their energy, their spiritual signature into a realm where we were actively watching. Let me tell you about Sister Chisholm. She was a young woman living in Port Howard. She worked as a secretary at an oil company. She had a good salary. She lived in a nice apartment. She was beautiful, and she knew she was beautiful. Sister Akisam had grown up being told she was beautiful. Her mother called her beautiful. Her aunties called her beautiful. Boys in school called her beautiful. Men on the street called her beautiful. Her entire identity was built on her appearance. This created an obsession. Sister Chisholm could not pass a reflective surface without looking at herself. Shop windows, car mirrors, phone screens, water in a bucket. Anything that showed a reflection demanded her attention. But her primary altar of self worship was the mirror in her bathroom. It was a large mirror floor to ceiling with bright lights around it, like something from a movie star's dressing room. She had installed it herself because the standard bathroom mirror was not big enough for her needs. Every morning, Sister Chisholm would spend at least an hour in front of that mirror. She would examine every part of her face. She would study her body from every angle. She would practice expressions. She would take photographs. She would apply makeup and remove it and apply it again until it was perfect. And at night, the ritual continued. Sister Chisholm had a bladder condition that made her need to use the bathroom multiple times during the night. Every single time she got up, even at 2 or 3 in the morning, she would stop at that mirror. She told herself she was just checking if she looked okay. She told herself it was just a habit. She told herself it did not mean anything, but it meant everything. Sister Chisholm did not know that I was watching through that mirror. And I was not the only one. In our coven, we had what we called mirror assignments. Specific spirits that were stationed at mirrors in targeted households. Their job was to observe, to monitor, to record, and to report back to the witch in charge of that territory. I had placed a mirror spirit in Sister Chisholm's bathroom 2 years before the destruction began. At first, My assignment was just surveillance. Watch her learn her patterns, understand her weaknesses, wait for an opportunity. And the opportunity came every single night. You see, when a human looks into a mirror after midnight, something happens in the spiritual realm that is difficult to explain. It is as if the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds becomes thinner. The mirror becomes a window, and depending on what is on the other side of that window, the person looking in can become extremely vulnerable. Every time Sister Chisholm looked into that mirror at 2 in the morning, I could see her. Not just her physical appearance, I could see her aura. I could see her spiritual covering. I could see where she was strong and where she was weak. But more than that, I could see her thoughts. When she looked at herself after midnight, her guard was down. Her spiritual defenses were not active, and her innermost thoughts would broadcast outward like a radio signal. I learned that Sister Chisholm was deeply insecure despite her beauty. I learned that she was terrified of aging. I learned that she compared herself to every woman she saw. I learned that she measured her worth entirely by her appearance. I learned that she believed no one would love her if she stopped being beautiful. These were the weapons I would use against her. For 8 months, I studied Sister Chisholm through her bathroom mirror. I learned her patterns. I learned her insecurities. I learned what made her confident and what made her afraid. And I used all of this information to build an assignment specifically designed to destroy her from the inside out. The assignment I placed was a spirit of dysmorphia. This is a spirit that distorts how a person sees themselves. It takes normal features and makes them look abnormal. It takes small imperfections and magnifies them into disasters. It creates an obsession with appearance that can never be satisfied because no matter how beautiful the person is, the spirit makes them see ugliness. I also added a spirit of comparison. This spirit made Sister Chisholm constantly compare herself to other women, not just any women, the most beautiful women, celebrities, models, women who had teams of professionals, making them look perfect. Every time Sister Chisholm saw such a woman, the spirit would whisper that she was inferior. The third spirit I placed was a spirit of aging fear. Even though Sister Chisholm was only 29 years old, I made her see signs of aging that did not exist, wrinkles that were not there, sagging that was not happening, gray hairs that did not exist. Within 3 months of placing these assignments, Sister Chisholm's behavior began to change. She started spending more money on beauty products, creams that promised to reverse aging, serums that claimed to eliminate wrinkles, makeup that cost more than some people's monthly salary. She started eating less. She told herself she needed to maintain her figure. She skipped breakfast. She skipped lunch. She ate only a small dinner. Then she started skipping dinner, too. She started exercising obsessively, not healthy exercise, punishing exercise. 3 hours at the gym every day, running until her knees. ACD sit ups until her stomach burned. By month 6, Sister Chisholm had developed a full eating disorder. She would weigh herself multiple times a day. A fluctuation of even half a kilogram would send her into a panic. She would look in that mirror after midnight and pinch the skin on her stomach, disgusted by fat that did not exist. By month 9, Sister Chisholm was hospitalized for the first time. Malnutrition. Her body was shutting down. The doctors were confused because she was a young professional woman with a good job. They did not understand why someone like her would starve herself. She recovered. She went back to work. But within 3 months, she was back in the hospital. This time it was worse. Her heart had been affected. Her kidneys were stressed. The doctors warned her that if she continued on this path, she would die. And through it all, she never stopped looking in that mirror after midnight. Even in the hospital, when she could barely walk, she would shuffle to the bathroom at 200 in the morning and look at her reflection. The nurses thought it was vanity. They did not understand that it was addiction. They did not develop a technique that was so effective that other witches traveled from across the country to learn from her. Her specialty was mirror infiltration. Mama Esther established a surveillance point through that hallway mirror. She did not even need to visit the house physically through certain rituals I will not describe. She connected herself to that mirror spiritually from her home in another city entirely. She could see through that mirror as if she was standing right there. Every night, Mama Esther would watch the family members pass by. She would note who got up at what time. She would observe their spiritual state. She would listen to any words they spoke while walking past. She would study their auras for weaknesses, and she found plenty of weaknesses. Mr. Okachuku often got up at around 200 in the morning to use the bathroom. He was a worrier. He would walk past the mirror, muttering to himself about business problems. Mama Esther heard every word. She learned about contracts that were pending. She learned about debts that were owed to him. She learned about his fears and his hopes for the company. Mrs. Okachuku got up even more frequently. She had a weak bladder, sometimes 3 or 4 times a night. And she always paused at the mirror, always looked at herself, always adjusted her nightgown or touched her hair. She was vain without knowing it. Mama Esther used this against her. The oldest son was studying hard for his medical exams. He often stayed up late and then got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. Mama Esther observed that he was under enormous pressure. Pressure to succeed. Pressure to make his parents proud. Pressure that was creating cracks in his spiritual armor. The oldest daughter was 15 and developing the insecurities of adolescence. She would look in the mirror and critique her appearance, compare herself to the girls at school, worry about whether boys found her attractive. Mama Esther saw all of this. Over the course of 2 years, Mama Esther systematically destroyed that family from within. She started with Mr. Oakchuck's business, using what she had learned from his midnight mutterings. She placed assignments on specific contracts. The biggest contract fell through at the last minute, then another, then another. Clients who had been loyal for years suddenly went to competitors. Mr. Okechukwu could not understand what was happening. Then she attacked Mrs. Okechukwu's health. It started with headaches. Constant debilitating headaches that no medication could cure. The doctors could not find a cause. They tried everything. Scans, blood tests, specialists, nothing worked. The headaches continued. Then other symptoms appeared. Fatigue, joint pain, dizziness. Within a year, Mrs. Okachukwu had to take early retirement from teaching because she could no longer stand in front of a classroom. The oldest son began to fail his exams, not because he was not smart, not because he was not studying, but because his mind would go blank at critical moments. He would know the answer. He could feel it in his brain, but he could not access it. He had to repeat a year of medical school. Then he failed again. Eventually, he dropped out entirely. The son, who was supposed to become a doctor, became an unemployed young man sleeping in his parents' house. The oldest daughter got pregnant at 16. The boy who got her pregnant denied responsibility and disappeared. The shame was enormous. The family tried to keep it secret, but in a city like Benin, secrets do not stay hidden for long. Soon, everyone knew. The daughter's prospects for a good marriage were destroyed. The two younger children became rebellious. They stopped respecting their parents. They started staying out late. They started associating with bad friends.